What is up, guys? Welcome back to another video. And honestly, you would think Sony is paying my bills here because I have just been nonstop talking about every decision this accursed company has done with Spider-Man in the Madam Web trailer thoughts that I have, which is in the up right corner over there. And basically, there's this rumor, and it came from this very valid source, Daniel RPK. He's been very accurate with most things. I'm gonna say, though, he hasn't been accurate with everything. So again, take this with a pinch of salt here, but he came out with a report saying that Spider-Man 4 will be the movie that crosses over the Sony universe and the MCU. And on top of that, it will not only cross over the Sony universe and the MCU, it's gonna merge both universes, which means Venom, Craven, Madam Web, whatever else they have, are all gonna exist in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And all thanks to Spider-Man 4. And I was like, that's a horrible idea. I think that is a terrible idea. That is not the direction fans have been literally screaming at you for 2 years. All Sony realistically had to do was do a live action. Well, it's going to be live action anyways, but for the sake of this, all they had to do was do a college story with Peter Parker and have it be grounded. That's it. That's all you had to do. Fans did not ask much this time around when it came for Spider-Man 4. Sure, they may have asked a lot for No Way Home, and I'm going to drop a truth bomb about No Way Home that maybe not a lot of you guys want to hear, but it needs to be said because it's probably a little true. No Way Home for sure has factored into Sony's thought process of how to, do all of this. And let's just break it down easily. So yes, they said the Sony universe and the MCU is going to merge. Again, I don't know how to feel about that because on one hand, you're like, this is pretty bad. On the other hand, you're like, this is awful. This is a terrible company choice. Like, obviously, but like, it's not surprising because Sony for years has been saying, hey, you might see Tom Holland Spider-Man fight Tom Hardy. They've been teasing it, they've been flirting with the idea, and now let's talk about the elephant in the room. No Way Home kind of gave them that excuse because Spider-Man No Way Home was a multiverse Spider-Man movie that did have different Spider-Man universes, like the Tobey Maguire and the Andrew Garfield one, crossover with the MCU. Not merge, but crossover with the MCU. And that movie made over almost $2 billion. Sure, they re-released it to hopefully make the movie push $2 billion, and that didn't end up happening, thank God, because if that movie fully made $2 billion, we would have been seeing Spider-Man 4 by 2025. Sony would have been fast tracking that movie immediately. And I can't believe I'm saying this. I think No Way Home was a mistake. Now, hear me out. Yes, it was amazing to see Toby, Andrew, and Tom all together for one movie. It's still cool. All three Spider-Man swinging, everything was cool. I still like No Way Home. I don't love it as much as I used to, but I still like it. It's not a terrible movie. It's still a very solid movie that has great points, that has great things in it. However, when it came to Sony's direction, they're like, oh, the multiverse just gives us an excuse to do what we've wanted to do with Andrew Garfield, with Tom Holland. And sadly, make it make sense. Because we saw Vulture in the Morbius universe. What was that left over from? No Way Home. So it's clear that No Way Home is going to become a big plot point. The events of No Way Home has clearly affected the Sony universe. Across the Spider-Verse references this. Morbius references this. I wouldn't be surprised if Madam Web references something with No Way Home. Small or big. But No Way Home, very pivotal movie. Made Sony $2 billion. But instead of saying, oh, people liked it because you saw all three Spider-Man. Like, that was a special occasion that you can't really replicate. No Way Home is not a movie that you're gonna try to do a substantial sequel to with the same aspects, because it's not gonna fundamentally work the same. At least in my opinion. I know a lot of you could say, well, they could continue the Toby universe and the Andrew universe. I think they could give Andrew one more movie, maybe Toby another, but if we're talking just Spider-Man 4 for Tom Holland, it should have strictly just been him at college. Grounded. Maybe fans have been saying, hey, let him fight Scorpion. You've teased him since Spider-Man Homecoming. And, like, no. But it also added to another report earlier where they were like, oh, yeah, Vulture is going to return in Spider-Man 4. We were all like, okay, because he's all the way in the Morbius universe, and unless Sony's just gonna retcon that and said that never happened, or, just completely ignore the existence of Morbius, which I wouldn't be surprised if they just completely ignore the existence of Morbius and pretend that movie never happened, and you just say, Vulture never went to a different universe. I'm so sorry for the background noise. I don't know what's going on there. But anyways, it sounds like New York, right? But anyways, so you're gonna have that. But we know Vulture's in the Morbius universe. We're hearing Sony's merging the MCU with the Sonyverse. It seems like Spider-Man 4 is going to be another multiverse movie. And I understand we're in the multiverse saga. By the time Spider-Man 4 comes out, we would be on the build up to Secret Wars. We would be on the come up to Secret War. We would be like during the hype build up to Secret Wars. Yeah, okay, that's great. Why are we starting to sacrifice characters' personal stories now? Why are we gonna make MCU Spider-Man do another multiverse movie? He already had his multiverse movie. This is the time where you get to flesh him out as his own independent Spider-Man. This is not where you bring in the Sony universe and you do all this other crap and you try to replicate the success of Spider-Man No Way Home. Because that's exactly what Sony's trying to do. They're like, oh wow, No Way Home was really successful, let's replicate that. Again, Spider-Man fans, yes, they are a very needy bunch. I will agree with that. And sure, they could be a little bit fickle to get, because sometimes they want something and other times they don't want it and blah, blah, blah. But they've been pretty direct about how they would want MCU Spider-Man to continue. And Kevin Feige seemed to have fueled that, because I remember during one of the shows, whether Comic-Con or D23, I assume it was probably Comic-Con of 2022, he said there are gonna, oh my god, what is that in the background? But anyways, but he said, hey, guess what? We're gonna have different quarters of the MCU. We're gonna have the multiverse quarter, obviously the main part. We're gonna have the, cosmic era. We're gonna have the, the magic. And then he said street level, and he put Spider-Man. He was very deliberate in saying Spider-Man for street level. But what we've been hearing recently about Spider-Man 4, it's not gonna go that route. So I assume Kevin Feige wanted to do a more street level Spider-Man movie, and Sony was like, we don't want to do that. We kind of have a plan with what we're doing. We got Madam Web. That's going to be tied into the multiverse. We're going to set up Kraven. Venom 3, who knows what they're going to do with that movie. And we're going to tie these things into the fourth MCU Spider-Man movie, because guess what? No Way Home showed us, hey, if we do the multiverse, we can make $2 billion. Our most successful Spider-Man movie, two of our most successful Spider-Man movies, No Way Home and Across the Spider-Verse, all multiverse. So, audiences clearly love us continuing with Spider-Man the multiverse. And people are already getting tired of Spider-Verse. They're already getting tired of Spider-Man being in the multiverse. We'll save it for Beyond the Spider-Verse, because we want to see how that story concludes. That's it. I've seen people say, we are so tired of Spider-Verse because they keep doing Spider-Verse. Yes, Across Spider-Verse, Into the Spider-Verse, fantastic movies. Yes, No Way Home was a good movie. But it started to become very clear and abundant that Sony just wants to do whatever they want, and they wanted it to be in the MCU so that they could get more people to watch these crappy movies. So we're going to have Hypno Hustler in the MCU. Why? Because Sony says so now, because they're merged. But like the thing is, if Kevin Feige, if from the reports, I'm only guessing this from the reports, if Kevin Feige wanted to take Spider-Man for a street level approach, but Sony wants to go this more multiverse route, tying in all these movies and stuff, what happened? Why? Like, is Kevin Feige not fighting against this? And I think it is because I think Kevin Feige just wants Spider-Man to stay with Marvel any way possible. If this was back then, Kevin Feige would have said, "You get that dirty ass shit out my cinematic universe. You take your filthy ass fingers away from the shit I just crafted." That's what he would have said years ago. Now it's a little different. The MCU is not as strong as it used to be. They just had their lowest opening weekend with the Marvels, and the Marvels is probably going to be their worst performing movie at the box office. Probably. Not indefinitely, but probably it will be their lowest grossing movie of the entire franchise. Nobody's really watching the show. Secret Invasion, Miss Marvel, those are some of the lowest viewed shows of the franchise. There is I don't think there is superhero fatigue exactly. I think there is mediocrity fatigue. I think there is mediocrity fatigue because people are just tired because the MCU keeps making mediocre movies. Not everything that the MCU has made is mediocre, by the way, but it's been too inconsistent. It's been too many, oh, this was bad, oh, this was mid, oh, this was good, and back and forth. That's just been the pattern. That's been the pattern that we've been seeing with the MCU. The MCU is clearly not at the place that it was back in 2017 when Kevin Feige could tell Amy Pascal to fuck off with her idea of the Sony movies being in the MCU. But as we head into these Avengers movies, we're going to talk about Kang Dynasty. I think there's a lot to talk about with what they're doing with Kang Dynasty. But I think they are starting to realize Spider-Man is the only thing they have going for them. They do have some other characters like Shang-Chi that people like, but it's not a big portion of new characters or old faces that people still like anymore. So they're like, oh my god. That's why the rumors of Avengers Secret Wars is that MCU Spider-Man, Tom Holland Spider-Man, he's going to be the main person to represent the MCU during Secret Wars. There's no mention of Captain America. There's no mention of any of the other characters in the MCU. They said Tom Holland Spider-Man will represent the MCU. They also talk about Tobey Maguire and Hugh Jackman being the stars of the movie. And to even get 2/3 of your stars in that movie, unfortunately, you would need to play the game with Sony. And like I said, the MCU's not at a place that it used to be. Spider-Man is still the only character in the MCU to make $1 billion movie. I mean, Doctor Strange came pretty close, but the movie wasn't that great, so it never cracked $1 billion. Black Panther, they don't have Chadwick Boseman anymore. That didn't crack $1 billion. The Marvels just fell on its face. You know, the Guardians are gone. I mean, they didn't even make $1 billion for their third movie. Not that they needed to. It was still successful. But the Guardians are gone. Iron Man's gone. Captain America's gone. I mean, who knows when they make a Thor 5 and if Thor 5 is going to be good. That's its own thing. And we don't even know if they're going to do Kang Dynasty. So the MCU is just a mess. But I think Kevin Feige is like, oh my god, we need Tom Holland Spider-Man. Like he's still the only marketable character that people will go out and go see him be in something. And be in an Avengers movie. We kind of need Tobey Maguire Spider-Man to be in Secret Wars, so maybe we got to play with Sony. On the other side of things, Sony's not at the position they were when Spider-Man Homecoming started. When Spider-Man Homecoming was coming out, and they were talking about, oh, this Sony stuff, and then Kevin Feige was like, get that shit out of my face. Not only was the MCU at an all-time high, but Sony, they didn't have anything. Their last Spider-Man movie was The Amazing Spider-Man 2, and that bombed. Well, it didn't even bomb, it just underperformed. And for Sony, that was like, ooh, we may have killed the Spider-Man franchise. Let's put him in the MCU. Let's revive him. But then they started getting success, and I was like, oof, back in 2018, I was like, I don't think you should make Venom a very successful movie. Because if Venom's a successful movie, they're going to milk the shit out of Spider-Man. And I was right. Back in 2018, back when I was basically an idiot. I didn't know anything better. I didn't know anything about how the Hollywood system worked. I didn't know nothing. I was fresh out of middle school in 2018. Freshman in high school, I was like, man, I don't know if Venom should be successful, because if Venom's successful, they're gonna do this with a lot of Spider-Man villains. That ended up being the case. Venom made over $800 million. Not associated with the MCU, its own thing. Venom made $800 million. Now, sure, Venom 2 did a little less, but it came out during the pandemic. And Venom 2 did better than Shang-Chi, Eternals, and Black Widow. At least theatrically for Black Widow, but Venom 2 did better than all of those movies. At least at the worldwide box office, it did better than those movies. I mean, sure, Morbius flopped, but Sony's had more successes in this span than the MCU really has. They've had the Spider-Verse movies. The MCU Spider-Man trilogy was thriving. The Venom movies weren't doing that bad. So in Sony's case, they're like, oh, even outside the MCU, we could still make bank. Why? Let's put our pressure. So now, when it comes to Spider-Man 4 discussions, I feel like Marvel Studios doesn't have as much power as they used to. Marvel Studios could X a lot of things. Sony probably has more creative control now, because they're like, hey, our stuff has been more successful than your stuff. And to be honest, Spider-Man doesn't need the MCU. Right now, the MCU needs Spider-Man. So if you want to keep Spider-Man, we're going to have to merge our universes. That's what's happening. That's probably what's happening. So we'll see how Spider-Man 4 even turns out. We'll see if this is even true. But until then, I'll see you guys in the next video, where I might talk about Kang, because I think that needs to be discussed too. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.